Lead to your left and to my left. We start with our Finance Commissioner, Jim LaPerch. We have our Police Commissioner, Edmund Hartnett. We have, you can give him applause. We got Fire Commissioner, Tony Pagano. Public Works Commissioner, John Lazuski. A Building Commissioner, John Meyer. And for those of you, I don't know if the last time we were here, he was our commissioner, but Augie Cambry is now the commissioner of the Parks and Recreation Department. Augie had previously been the deputy commissioner, and as you know, the Parks Department does a great job. A lot of that was done because the commissioner at the time, Mr. Tony, had a great deputy who's done a terrific job. The format's going to be this. I'm going to give a presentation on the budget, basically where we are, where we've been, how we got here, where we're headed. And then we're going to open it up to questions. Now you can ask a question of me, you can ask a question of any of the commissioners and direct it to them directly, or just throw the question out there, and whichever one of us have the answer or answers, we'll pick it up. I'd like you to ask one question at a time until everyone who wants to ask a question has had an opportunity to, and then happy to go back for a second, third, fourth question. We're going to try and finish up. It's a little after 7 now. I'd like to be finished by by no later than 9 o'clock. Okay? All right, let's start out now. I'm going to start out with a brief presentation on the budget. You've heard a lot. Listen, it's not news to you. It's not news to you how serious things are financially in this country, obviously in the state, and we haven't sidestepped that either. It's true of all the cities around the state, including the city of Yonkers. We have had some serious problems. We've addressed them. We're going to have even more serious problems, and we will address them. As you can see over on the screen, sometime after the first quarter, which is the first 3 months of the year, and for us that's July, August, and September, the first quarter, Commissioner LaPerch came to me and said, all right, we've got a serious problem. Our revenues are down. Our revenues are down like they were every place else, and they were down because mortgage recording tax was down, as you can see, 46%. And it's down because people weren't selling houses, they weren't buying houses, they weren't refinancing their houses, because we had already started to have a real serious problem with the economy of the state. Real estate transfer tax, same thing, sales of houses was down, and our income tax and sales taxes were also down. Now, what he had to do was project out till the end of the year, and he did so. And he said that would project out to be about a $7 million loss. And there was one other thing. Any money that we have in taxes, we put in short-term investments, and they pay, obviously they pay interest. And they were paying significantly less money in interest, in fact $1 million less, or projected to for the end of the year. We also had an increase in cost, in expenses for the city. Most of it was due to overtime. And that was police, fire, and public works. Most of that was police overtime. But I've talked about this in the past. And a lot of the police overtime is due to the fact that we're still not up to the size, or we don't believe we're up to the size of a police department that we need to be. So a lot of those slots were being filled because almost all of that time was going into tours that were not being worked because someone was out sick or someone was on vacation, but we needed to fill the spot in that patrol car or walking the beat or in a particular unit like the anti-crime unit or the schools. So when you added all of that up, that added up to about $9 million in costs over what was budgeted. So combined, it was a $16 million hole that we were projecting for the end of the year, and we don't have a choice. We have to balance a budget by the end of the year. If we don't, we get a control board. We had a plan, and our plan to reduce the $16 million deficit, as you can see. First, we went to the departments and said, start with a 5% cut across the board. Now, we knew it couldn't happen that way, because a 5% cut in some departments would literally wipe out the department. We couldn't cut things like the money we're paying on the debt service of all of the capital projects we built over the years. You can't cut that. That has to be paid. So there were things we could not afford to cut. So what we started by doing a 5% cut, and that came out to about $12.1 million in savings. We then exercised a series of administrative actions like purchasing freeze on anything but those that were absolutely essential. Redeployment of the men and women in the different departments so that they could reduce overtime by filling, and as you know, there was a substantial one done in our police department where 48 members of the department were taken out of specialized units and moved into patrol, so they were in the precinct, so we would fill as much of the patrol as we possibly could on a regular basis and not incur overtime. That left some of those special departments, and those special units rather, which include things like our street crimes unit, the drug task force, the school officers, either reduced or in some cases eliminated. Not something we wanted to do. And I have to say that some people actually came to me and said, well, if that's the way you reduced it, then why did you keep those people there in the first place? Because we don't want to go on with those units reduced so severely. That's not good for the city. In the end, it'll pay serious dividends, it'll have serious consequences not having the police in those units. Same thing with the fire department. We had to lay off 11 police officers. No, I said police officers. We had 21, which included police officers. There were vacancies and actual police officers. 11 police officers lost their jobs. Fire department, we had to lay off 6 firefighters, and we demoted 17 lieutenants in the fire department down to firefighters to ride the trucks. Significant reductions. In the Department of Public Works and Parks combined, we had 50 layoffs of Teamsters who pick up the garbage, plow the streets, work in our parks, do all of those jobs the Department of Public Works did. And we had another 75, I can probably have that slide up here, 75 part-time workers. So that's how we were going to balance the budget. Now, we didn't want to lose all these people, so we went to the unions and we said, can you help us? Are there things that you're able to do or willing to do? Because it had to be voluntary, and we could not force them to do things. Are there things that you're willing to do and able to do to reduce costs that allow us to either bring back or promote back those people who have either been laid off or are being demoted? And a number of the unions did just that, and in the end, we were able to save most of the layoffs, the full-timers, and some of the part-timers, because groups like the South Yonkers Business Improvement District came up and said, we want to hire back the rangers, or some of the rangers who were laid off so they can continue to do the downtown sidewalks and work with our Public Works Department on the streets. So we were able to save a lot of those jobs. I had to explain to them I couldn't guarantee that they were going to be saved for anything longer than 6 months, which would be the end of our fiscal year, June 30th. And I couldn't guarantee that there wouldn't be even further layoffs during this fiscal year if the numbers got worse, if the state cut back on the funding that we were getting. There were so many factors we couldn't control. But what I did promise is that if there was any way to avoid any further cuts, we would. But you can see the impact that these cuts have had. There have been significant changes to the way we do business in the police department, in the fire department, in public works, and with all these guys back, with all these people back, we were able to maintain most of it. Probably over the next few months, on a daily basis, we'll determine whether or not we have to make any further moves. I can tell you this, well, this is what I just told you, 151 layoffs, roughly half part-time, half full-time. We had a number of vacancies that we just didn't fill. That's in addition to the 150, and 17 demotions. And we reduced our workforce by a total of 6%. That's significant in a city our size. This was our plan for reduction. This is something I presented at a press conference. You can see the police, fire, public works, and other department layoffs, because every department had an impact, including the mayor's office, where we actually eliminated positions, and the city council's office. And you can see where we had vacancies eliminated, layoffs, and also demotions. And that's how we achieved the savings that we did, so that we could project a balanced budget by the end of the year. Now you can imagine because people have asked, why did you have to take so much out of police, fire, and public works? Because that's where most of the money is spent. Those are the largest departments. Those 3 columns represent the budgets of those 3 departments. That's where most of the people are. And 75% of our budget is personnel. And this is just to give you an idea of where the budget cuts occurred and what percentage those departments are of the total budget to begin with. And although they weren't exactly the same, they were close. As you can see, they were similar size.